Alright, so if you're looking for a little bit of, we will say, guidance on the homework, this is the right place to be. So the first part of the homework just deals with, not even stuff that really was talked about in the lesson earlier. The first part of the homework talks about just a review of fractions. So in case you forgot how to add, subtract, multiply, divide fractions, then this is what you're going to want to check out. So when we look at number one, when we're adding fractions, remember we need common denominators. So we have 4 over 9 plus 3 over x. The common denominator that we can, or the way we can get a common denominator is multiplying each fraction by the other's denominator. So this 9 is missing an x in the denominator, so we're going to multiply this by x over x. This x over here is missing a 9 in the denominator, so we will multiply this by 9 over 9. So what we are left with then is 4x over 9x plus 27 over 9x. Now that we have common denominators, we can simplify. We cannot combine anything on the top, so this is the simplest form that we can get right here, writing it as one fraction. Now, one kind of caveat or side note, if we had something, let's say it was this, well then we would not be in simplest form, right? We have an 18, 27, and 9, which means that they have a GCF of 9. So we could rewrite it like this. And then I would expect you to simplify it to this. So just make sure, double check that these fractions are in simplest form. But that one we are all set. So let's look at this other example. This is addition, right? But if we had a subtraction problem, same thing. Get common denominators. You'll probably just have to leave that subtraction sign up top. But if you can simplify, then simplify. When we have multiplication, then we are allowed to just multiply across, right? We don't need common denominators. So 3 times x times 18, and we can simplify. Our x's cancel, and we are left with 1 over 6. 1/6 would be our final answer on that one. So there's the first bunch of questions, are add, subtract, multiply, and then the last few on that page are to divide. So when we divide fractions, we have 4 over x divided by 1/3. We don't like to divide fractions. We technically don't divide fractions, so maybe something that you learned in middle school is they set it up like this. They didn't have the big divide bar, but it means the same thing. And what they would have told you in like 6th grade is to keep, change, and flip. So we keep 4 over x, we change from division to multiplication, and we flip to that 1/3 to 3 over 1. A little throwback to 6th grade. Keep, change, flip. So, in practicality, what that means is that we see this fraction and we just rewrite it as this, and we simplify. So 12 over x would be our answer here. But in case you missed that in 6th grade, there you go. You got that one for free. Don't even have to pay anything. Next set of questions is a little bit, well, I guess I will mention the first couple on the next page. When it says solve for x with 13, 14, 15, 16, on those you will first use these steps that we just looked at with all this stuff here to write the fraction on the left-hand side, or the fractions on the left-hand side as one term, and then you will look to cross multiply to try to solve. So if you take a look at the key, that is what I did, and I showed a little bit more work than I usually do, so you can check that out for a little bit of help or let me know. Now here's the new stuff, right? Direct variation, inverse variation, and well, we can choose neither. When we look at number 1. Well, and actually when we look at all of these, they give it to us in a form that we are not familiar with. So we want to look to try to solve it so it's in the form either y equals a over x or y equals a times x, okay? If it's in this form, we know that it is inverse variation. If it's in this form, we know that it is direct variation. If we can't get it into either of these forms, then we would be looking at neither. So with this first one, we can solve this to be in the form y equals 3 over x. So that would let us know that it is inverse variation. That's it. That's all you're trying to do on those. Now, there's only a couple of them, so you can probably guess that we will use direct, inverse, and neither one time each. All right, last type of question. In these, I try to say it on the key, but I'll say it on the video as well. These are something you absolutely will need to write some things down for. You cannot do these just in your head. So what I would expect to see is your setup every time. They tell us that we want inverse variation, and we're trying to solve and write an equation. So, sorry, I threw a lot of things at you there. Our inverse variation is in this form right here. To write an equation for inverse variation, we need to figure out what the a value is. So they give us x and y, but then we need to solve for a. So that's what you're doing in each one of these. So what I would expect to see is here, they give us x and y. They tell us x is 5 and y is -2. So you would need to solve for a. So what I would do, like in this situation, is probably cross multiply. Oh wait, didn't we just talk about that in the last couple problems? Yeah, we did. That was good practice. Whoever thought of that? It was Mrs. Shoup and or Mrs. Stone that thought of that, so I can't even take credit. But we would find a equals -10, and our equation would be y equals -10 over a. So this is essentially what you're doing for each one of those, is setting up your equation and solving to find a, then rewrite the actual equation in that form. So there's a little bit of homework help. Hopefully you found that to be, maybe encouraging isn't the right word, but kind of encouraging, because I think even for me, when I looked at this stuff for the first time, it was tricky, and I was like, oh boy, we might struggle with this. But as you kind of get used to the new vocab and everything, it's not as bad as it seems. So let me